Hello and welcome to A/B testing.
Welcome. Hope you hear us saying words and not Alex being animate. What is it? Mutely animated or animatedly muted or something
Yeah,
like that. Who said this? Okay, great.
animately mute. I don't know.
Mutedly. Okay. Anyways, hey y'all, welcome. A/B testing. We have special guests. We're on a stream roll. Or anyways, we have guest awesomeness. But actually, before we kind of start, we have a few housekeeping questions to kind of ask because we care about your opinion. Yay, viewers. I'm a little unhinged today, probably because I need a little more sleep and hydration, but bear with me. Okay, so we might have like a late night stream, not a late night stream because we have families and stuff like that, but would y'all be open to a stream that starts for one day? Sorry, Brent, you're hearing this live on stream. Sorry, you're out of office. Would y'all be open to kind of joining a stream that's like later? And then also like what's the cutoff? You know what I mean? So yeah, let us know like how late is too late for like stream stuff. Cause we might switch it up just for 1 week. Just for 1 week.
To have a very special guest.
Very special.
Like
Very special.
It's not just because we feel like it. It's we're trying to accommodate somebody who might not live in a time zone that can start at 2 Eastern.
Basically. So yeah, so let us know, chat, if you'd be kind of open to that. What's your boundary?
Brent already knows, so we're good.
Okay. All right. See the fact that Brent. Okay. Late night
Wow,
shenanigans.
that's how good it is.
Wow. We were actually concerned about Brent being like, no, because that's how Brent talks. No.
We'll change it for that one episode to Late Night with Alex and Bianca.
Ooh, yes.
Late night testing.
Late night. Yeah.
Late night shenanigans.
Late night shenanigans. We'll be we'll be family friendly in case
A/B after dark. I like that.
Boom. And then we'll be family friendly though, in case like your family is like, what are you doing? You're like watching these two random people on stream. Anyways, or three. But anyways, we have some good stuff for you today. We're learning about another awesome champion. We had a champion last week, Tristan. If you missed that, go check it out. Yes, I'm giving you homework. And then today we have Steve who's joining us. And then we'll have like a build. So if you have questions, share them. And then also, if you haven't gotten your tickets to Signal, what are you doing? So that's the other thing too. And then, yeah, Alex, anything else before we get started here?
No, I think Signal was the big one.
Okay, cool.
I'm just gonna share a link in a moment, but we'll bring. Are we ready?
I think we're ready, Steve.
I think we're ready. Steve, give me a thumbs up.
You got a thumbs up if you're ready.
Oh, now I just.
Wow, Alex, is it just AS testing? Wow.
Yeah.
Just remove me, just like that.
We need you to unmute your mic there, Steve, and then we'll be able to hear you. But I don't know why I can't, but.
Because he's on mute.
There we go.
Yes, I'm unmuted now.
We're getting there.
Welcome, Steve, calling all the way from across the pond, right?
Yep, correct.
Nice.
Cool. So
Steve, it's already a late night stream for Steve.
Basically, we're practicing this week. So Steve, if you were to give us kind of your classic intro, how would you introduce yourself to folks?
Oh yeah, well, I'm Steve, and I am someone who's passionate about technology. Been in this space for over 20 years, and I sleep and eat tech. So yeah, that's just the the brief intro about me.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Well, let's jump right into it. Accounting is your thing. Yeah. But it's not just accounting. So kind of like, yeah, maybe if you can kind of quickly run us through like how did you find yourself here in this present moment, right?
I've been someone who I've always loved numbers. So but the thing about me was and this is funny, I loved numbers, but I didn't like my maths teacher. So, so
There you
which
go.
so which meant that I wasn't doing too well in math. Well, not too badly, but not too well either. So I didn't like sciences. So the next logical step for me was to look at, okay, what else could I do that had to do with numbers? And I got introduced to accounting and I loved it. I could deal with numbers anytime I wanted to. And that's how I had went into university and studied accounting for my first degree.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So, you have to be fast friends with numbers at this point.
Yeah.
Very, very important. I'm kind of curious, like, what are a lot of the like kind of overlaps, right? That you've kind of started to see within these two spaces, right? Within, accounting proper and also technology.
It's interesting, really, because when just shortly before I graduated, I got fascinated with IT, and I switched over quickly from accounting to IT, and never really practiced as an accountant. But interestingly, most of the areas of industry I've worked in have been financial. I worked in a bank for well over 8 years, and I've worked in other financial institutions as well. And it was, I used to think then that, when I switched, that was kind of like the end of accounting, and I wasn't going to go back to it. But interestingly enough, it was actually a boost to me because it meant that in those areas that I worked in, I was able to quickly grasp and have an understanding of what clients wanted and what my employers wanted. And so it took less time for me to be able to understand, oh, okay, yeah, this is what we want to implement, and I was usually kind of like the go-to between the business and the rest of my tech team, because I understood those concepts, quicker and easier than my other colleagues who are just, pure techies. Yeah. So, and up till today, I'm still having that overlap. I currently work as an engineering manager in a financial services company, and we do accounting stuff, we do CFO stuff, and it's that knowledge still comes in handy on my day-to-day as well.
Yeah, I've found this in a few different areas where it's almost harder to teach the subject matter than it is to teach the coding, right? Especially
exactly
if it's a job you can learn. Before Twilio, I worked at a robotics company, and almost every person at their robotics company had a degree in the electrical engineering or mechanical engineering spaces, and then learned to code robots. And it was it's that other thing. Same thing in finance. I think a lot of times the finance stuff, if you're not exposed to it, is really hard to figure out. But if you're exposed to it and then you figure out how to code and you're doing coding in your work, it really helps you and benefits you. So I'm glad that you figured that out. And that's just a great point. And yeah, it's fun to kind of merge the different parts of your life.
Yeah, true. Oh, we lost Bianca.
Bianca,
we can't hear you again.
Oh yeah, sorry. I kind of muted myself. We're just animatedly this is what we're doing today. For me, sometimes like accounting feels very like you have a very traditional, right? Like accounting is very traditional, but then you have technology, which is like innovation, the future, right? Like how do you kind of deal with that tension, right? Which is like working in these traditional spaces while also trying to help people embrace the future, right? Like what tactics have you found that have been helpful there? But I'm just kind of curious, like your perspective on that.
Yeah. So in my current role, for instance, I do something called tech sessions, even with the accountants, where I sit down with them, and I do kind of like knowledge sharing, because one thing I realize is that it's not enough for you to kind of ask them, okay, what do you want? And then you build it and say, okay, here you go, start using it. Sometimes I think the best way to handle those tensions is to be able to bring them on board, help them understand what it takes to be able to build those things, and also involve them in helping you think through that process. And one thing I found out that it excites them, when they are part of that process, when you're actually walking them through the logical progression of solving that problem using technology. And that's one thing that I have kind of introduced that really helped, build that cohesion between tech, business, and finance.
I really like that, because I think even this aspect of like, when you're in these traditional spaces, it's like, just do this. We just follow. It's like very rule following versus like, how do we solve problems? And I think the solving problem then lends itself to like, well, then how do we create better customer experiences? How do we do all these other things? So I think even that approach of like thinking like a builder, thinking like someone who's like creating solutions, I like it. So we mentioned earlier that you're a Twilio champion. Twilio, we know a little something about, experiences and creating great ones. But like, from your end, I like to ask, other folks, why Twilio? Like, why do you actually like using the product? Like, we work here, so we are #sponsored by Twilio. But like, from your lens, like, why Twilio? What spoke to you about the products?
Yeah, interesting question. There was many years ago, I had some requirements to do integrations, which had to do with messaging, and I tried different platforms. Quite a number of them have become a lot better now, but then it used to be like pulling teeth to be able to use some of those APIs, not fully understanding things like error messages, error codes, and so on like that. And some had some very, very restrictive ways of implementing, the interfaces as well. And so, it meant that I had to kind of review many different solutions. And until one day, I think I literally just stumbled on Twilio, to be honest. And, one thing that attracted me was the fact that they not only had very good documentation, but Twilio also had these sandboxes where you can actually try, and it even tells you, try it now. And then I remember the first time I was like, try it now. Are you kidding? And I tried it, and ping, I got the SMS, and I was like, whoa, okay, that worked, And not only that, you also had, links to different SDKs that you could use as well. And, it was just in some cases, you could be lazy enough to just copy that code and just paste it in, and it works. And I think that was the beginning of my journey. I mean, you couldn't tell me to use anything else because it just worked. And if there's any lesson I have learned, especially when it comes to technology, if something works, it works. You don't need to start looking for the next shiny new thing, And I think that has been my journey so far, with regards to Twilio. And anytime you wake me up and say we need messaging, it's like synonymous with Twilio. That's the first thing I say.
There you go. I love that. I'm a copy paste coder myself too, so I feel that. Do you remember, like, I know I love like that feeling of like being in like, I remember when I was like using Twilio or something, and like it's very flashy and showy when you're like in your product review for your sprint, and you're like, and now everybody on the team's going to get a text message. But do you remember what the first thing you built with Twilio was?
Ooh.
Oh yeah, I do remember clearly. I was actually running a company with a friend of mine, and he was running a competition where, when people, enter into the competition, we send them SMS, once they've entered in, and, when we run the algorithms that choose the winners, we use Twilio to dispatch those messages to them as well. And that was the very, very first one. But Twilio wasn't even the first solution that we used with it. But Twilio was actually the last one because it was the one that really worked. And it's not even just about sending the message. The messages is also about having visibility. When you send the SMSs, the business doesn't even know what you're sending. They don't even know what you're doing. But when you are able to seamlessly build a backend that actually, you fetch what comes back through the webhook, and you're able to display to them, oh yeah, 100 messages sent, 90 was successful, 5 were not successful. They could see that, they could visually see that, oh, this is working. And that's actually the beauty of it.
Mm-hmm.
I like that perspective too, because even this aspect of like, how does even like Twilio support the business too? So it's like, it's not just about building great tech, but like, what are the data points that like, you can get some insight. So the other thing too, we heard about you because we just know all your business. Engineering manager, right? So you're, you currently work as an engineering manager. What does management look like, right? Like in this era where people, there's all the things of how we build great software solutions. So I guess I'm curious, like, what does management look like for you today? How do you feel like it's evolved? What are you learning, currently?
Yeah. I wish I could tell you that it's been, I wish I could tell you it's been an easy ride, because it's not been. I remember when I first got this role, I almost got burnt out in the first year. and that was because I couldn't clearly demarcate between being a developer and being a manager. And I wanted to, I wanted to be the gateway between the developers, what they're pushing in. I wanted to see everything. I wanted to make sure there were no, breaking changes, and so on like that. And then you had the business on the other hand saying, we want this now, and then you had the developer saying, but Steve, this can't be done now, and I'm like sitting in the middle and saying, well, business, it's not going to happen now. And they're like, why? And I have to kind of rack my brain in the middle and ask myself, how do you create that balance? And it took me almost a year for me to be able to ask myself, do you want to continue to manage, or do you want to just go back to being a developer, or do you just want to take this challenge headlong and find ways around it? And I think it was after that first year I told myself, you know what, you're gonna have to make people responsible for what they're doing. You have to trust your engineers that they're going to do the right thing, and you're going to need to identify the ones that are really good among them and give them that responsibility. You need to delegate, because unless you delegate, you're going to burn yourself out. Mm-hmm. And that was the first thing I did. So I was able to delegate, and then another thing I was able to do was, for the business side of things, involve them in the development process. So whenever they come and they said, oh, we need this now, I sit them down and I say, okay, what exactly do you want? And they go, we want that. And I say, okay, this is going to take 1 week. And this is not a matter of negotiation, because this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. And this is what's going to happen. And eventually, that demand for now or next week, started reducing, because because they are part of, they see themselves as part of the development process, and not just coming to demand. Because when you're making that demand, what you're literally doing is you're demanding from yourself what you cannot do. So I kind of grabbed some of them. In fact, I got some of the people who are actually traditional accountants. I made them project managers. So that
Devious.
actually, yeah, it was devious, but it worked in my favor. Yeah, so because at the end of the day, it was like, when the business comes and say we want this, I just say, okay, go meet this person. She's the one managing the project.
Yeah.
And then my life actually took a new turn for good. So that's how I was able to manage that.
I love that. It's so hard to be like product manager, project manager, engineering manager as you're trying to like balance all the requirements. Do you think it was easier that your kind of internal clients were accountants who are very good at putting things in buckets and balancing them and understanding trade-offs? Do you think that made it easier versus like somewhere else where you don't have that, people might not have quite understood?
I think the internal clients are much more difficult to handle. External clients kind of respect you as a consultant, because whatever you say, whatever you tell them, they're like, oh yeah, you're the expert. But the internal people are more like, well, we see you every day and we know, yeah, this is what we want and we know you can do it. So let's and but I think this is where education comes in. And this is where, I think I got to that point when I started involving stakeholders and helping them to understand. There have even been times when, I've told, we've actually agreed that this wasn't a coding problem. This wasn't a problem for software. This was just a process problem. And we had to sit down and review the process. And we ended up saving ourselves, time that we would have spent building something that would not have solved the problem.
I think what I'm also hearing that on that too is just like, when you jump into like, let's build this, you can sometimes kind of forget all the other pieces of like, why are we building this? No, that is definitely super helpful too.
I also really like your point. I just want to highlight this because I think it's very wise. Sometimes it's not a software problem, it's a process problem. And like, if you're trying to get from point A to B, maybe it's software, but maybe you just need like a different team to get, like, there's so many things that it could be. So I just want to highlight that because I think that's a very wise point. And the fact that you were able to get people to understand that is remarkable. I mean, that's kind of one of the hardest problems sometimes.
Yeah.
People are software, very soft.
The other thing too that is coming up as you were talking, which is, I feel like in this era, everyone's an expert. Everyone thinks they are an expert. So I think actually having people have real life. Okay, I guess here's my little thought, which is that we're going so much into like, I know it all, I know everything, but there's experience is such a great teacher. So like you can know it all of how you think this will be implemented, but I think having people know this is how you get from point A to point B, and like what it actually takes today, rather than like, oh, I just know. I read it somewhere, ChatGPT told me. It's
that's actually very true. Yeah.
It's classic Dunning-Kruger effect, which is where we're at with AI right now too, I think, right? Like as you start, you think you know what's going on. And then you figure out that you like don't actually know anything. But yeah, that's really hard to get over when you're sitting here and you're over trying to get, up here somewhere and you're dealing with a bunch of people over here. Those personalities can be really hard. It can be really hard to manage that. And, people think you can do everything just by knowing a little bit. And I think in some ways I love what AI can do and I love what it does, but it is exacerbating this a little bit because everyone thinks they can ask ChatGPT, get an answer, and then they're an expert.
Yeah, I agree with that. In fact, it's interesting you brought this up because I've been having some conversations around AI, and and especially in our industry, there was a funny thing I saw on Reddit quite a couple of months ago. Someone who used AI to build an application using Python, and it worked, right?
Mhm.
But when it came to a point, everything didn't work anymore. And then he couldn't solve the problem, and AI couldn't solve the problem for him. So now he's looking for help. And he's probably spent weeks and months building this product or whatever it was that no longer works, but he has no idea, and one thing especially for younger up and coming developers, my fear is that, if your first port of call to learn something is AI, then you are actually setting yourself up for failure, because at the end of the day, it's important that you understand what's that subject. AI is good; it helps you speed up the process, but it's not it's not what will give you that total understanding of what you're doing. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been feeling a bit lazy, and I go to to one of these tools, and I say, okay, yeah, I'm trying to build something, generate this code to do this and that, and I spend the next 20-30 minutes that I probably could have spent doing that thing myself, telling the tool that, oh, but don't you think if you do it this way, this is going to happen? And it says, oh, Steve, you're absolutely right. And then it goes on another tangent again, and I go, no, but if you do it that way, that's going to happen. And then at the end of the day, I was laughing one day when we got to a point, and it says, and it gave me a link to kind of go and read up on something. And I said, okay, it's got to the end of its thread. It can't help me anymore.
Even as you mentioned that, it's like sometimes I'm like, is it that people just needed validation? Did we need someone to say, good job, you're going down the right path? Like, we really could have just done this yourself. Like, half the time I'm like, really? All you added was a punctuation here.
Yeah.
I could have wrote that. Like,
we should just make an AI bot that doesn't do anything but give you positive reinforcement. You're doing a great job.
Essentially, like, oh yeah, wonderful. A few things that I'm like pulling out, just like these through lines that I really appreciate is like this reminder to go back to like even the fundamentals, like process, problem solving. But I think we're so focused on outcome, solution,
yes.
like what's the endpoint versus like the endpoint is great. That can always be modified, but like really understanding how do you like that repeat successes. I always like to say, like, you want to be able to have like repeat successes, not just saying like, oh, I just did this one time. Yeah. So no, I think it's like a good reminder. Okay. So we definitely have tons of questions, but we'll have some at the end, but it's our favorite time, which is sponsored, not sponsored. So this is the segment. So on sponsored, not sponsored, we just, because we're not getting checks from these places, but we like the products, but we need to have boundaries somewhere. So I will kick us off with some of my sponsored, not sponsored. As you can see, I have demolished this.
Tasty.
We got some organic dried mango. And is it really a Bianca sponsored, not sponsored, if there's not a skincare item? But because my camera likes to play me, I came ready with a visual as well, because you need to make sure you have great skincare. So this is amazingness. It's K-Beauty Korean skincare. It will change your life. I don't care if it's not cold outside. You still should be moisturized. And this is great. So you can find it on Amazon. I will say I'm not a fan of Amazon for skincare stuff, but that's just me. But anyways, thank you for joining Bianca's segment of sponsored, not sponsored.
Yeah.
Okay.
Steve, do you have someone to share?
No, not really.
Okay,
I mean, if I'm
that's
going to
fine.
talk about anything, it's just going to be purely software products. But yeah.
Yeah, give us a software product that you've loved using recently, or
Well,
something there.
actually, one of the software that I've found indispensable, and I use it every single day, is Todoist.
Todoist.
Oh,
Yes, and
oof.
it's kind of been my go-to. I mean, I wake up in the morning, and the first thing I do is I just create all my to-dos for the day. And I create deadlines. It gives me deadlines. It integrates with Google Calendar. So when meetings are set up, it just pushes it directly into my tasks for the day. I can add things even 1 year in advance, and I get the notification as such when it's due. So for me, I think that's something that is worth giving a thumbs up for.
That's a great one.
That was good. That was good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
Okay.
I always am
Yeah.
struggling with my to-do stuff.
I go between like paper to dos but then that's why I like have like 15 notebooks. But then it's like what? Okay, All right, Alex, what do you got?
Well, I
do you
got something.
have?
I just got to figure out what book I was going to. Ooh, wait, is that the book I want to do? I got to think about what book, but give me a minute. I'll do my other one first while I think about it.
Okay.
My sponsor, not sponsor, is a weird one today. I'm going to talk about having little things that are just fun and ornamental. Does anybody know what this is in chat? I don't know if you guys can see this. It's
looks like a pair of glasses, isn't it?
no.
It looks like a sand hold on. It's weird. It's between, it looks like a decanter, like it has pieces of what a decanter would look like, but then it also looks like a little like time capsule, not time thing, but like where you could put sand in. So I'm torn.
Yeah, I hear that. This is a specific thing called a Klein bottle. So what a Klein bottle is basically a 3-dimensional Mobius strip. So, a Mobius strip is like a 3-dimensional object that has one surface. So this actually only has one surface. If you think about it, like you have the outside, it's the same surface going into the hole, which then comes around and is the same surface as the inside. Wow. So it's just like a fun little weird knickknack that I have, but I got this from somebody who makes scientific glassware, and it's just been on my desk forever because I love cool, weird things. So I guess it's just like having little things that make you happy. Yes, Klein bottle, fun for both math and physics nerds, which I am both. So that's why I have that. You know what? Let's go fun for math nerds for my book recommendation too.
Ooh.
If anyone's read this one, I will be impressed. We're gonna pull this book. Gödel Escherbach. This book is a crazy, wild ride through the mathematics and contemplation of infinity. I think most of us know who MC Escher is, right? He's the artist who like makes all the things where it's like the waterfall's always going up and around. Bach, the musician, had a ton of self-referencing music, and then Gödel is a mathematician who wrote a whole theory about like numbers and self-referencing and things like this. The whole first half of this very thick book is a very elaborate set of math proofs that you're guided through by like some really interesting characters. It is a really interesting read. Definitely full on math nerd stuff. But I really enjoy this book, and a lot of really, really smart computer scientists that I know have also read this book. So Gödel Escherbach, if you need something that's really going to tickle every part of your brain.
You can't even see, you can't escape the math. You see, you tried.
No, I mean,
look at you, Steve. You tried.
My eyes just glazed over.
And you just
look at some of the pages here. Like, I don't know if you guys can see this. It's just like math notation.
See, found yourself.
They make it engaging. There's like all these different characters, like a rabbit and a hare, and they're like going through all the proofs. It's really, really a cool book. But again, maybe not for everybody. I'll admit.
Alex is pushing the math agenda on us. You know,
Yeah.
just making
Yeah,
sure
I'm pushing
everyone
my radical math agenda.
at a very, you know, everyone. But okay, so thank you, chat. Definitely let us know if you have other kind of sponsored, not sponsored. We need to build up Brent's affiliate page so we can all just like have it on his page, and then we just get the yeah, great. So thank you everyone for joining Sponsored Not Sponsored. So next up, so Steve has a has some builds that you're gonna kind of walk us through. We'll ask you questions during it, but Steve, we're gonna kind of hand you the baton of just like introduce the builds, let us know. Yeah, take us on a journey.
Okay, thank you. All right. First off, I just want to explain something, you know, that has to do with this project. I was, I think I went to, you know, my hair from my, you know, my barber, my regular barber, and I had to call him up and ask him for an appointment. And you know, of course, we had to kind of, oh, it's 2 p.m. okay? Oh no, I can make 2 p.m. I can make 4 p.m. And then, you know, we eventually settled on a time. And I got to his shop, and he was on the phone almost throughout while he was barbing my hair, trying to take in appointments and trying to agree timings with different clients. And that kind of just set me thinking. As someone who loves to solve problems, I saw this as a potential problem that I could find a solution to, and that is what you know, made me sit down one weekend, and I came up with an application that I'm calling, for now, Clipply, and that's what I want to present to us. So let me.
Awesome.
I want to be very clear. Clipply, not Clippy. Clipperly.
No, Clipply.
Got it.
Yeah.
No psychotic little paper clips.
Oh my God.
definitely.
You know what? So we really, oh my gosh, we really normalized the little paperclip talking to us. What were we going through?
But think about how long ago that was, and now we're doing it for real.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Let me know when you're ready to share your screen.
Okay,
Steve.
so I'm ready now. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Would you mind zooming in a bit, just doing like Control Plus on your browser so you can see a little bit bigger?
Let me do that.
That's great. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. So, so I've kind of given us, you know, my idea of how I decided to come up with this, and you know, I've been developing with PHP for, you know, so many years now. I don't want to mention it so that people won't start computing how old I am. But let's just say that I've been writing PHP since it was PHP 4, you know, and I use the Laravel framework as my, you know, framework of choice, as well as for front end, because I eventually moved. I used to have a love-hate relationship with JavaScript, but eventually, when Vue.js was released, Vue.js won me over, and it became my de facto framework for building, JavaScript frontends. And so, kind of like, this is the stack that I've been using. But for this particular application, I wanted something that I could do speedily, because I know I have limited time to do it. And then I thought, actually, I'm going to need a public-facing page, and then I'm going to need a backend where, you know, the businesses will be able to manage the appointments and all that. And if you know, any developer will tell you that building dashboards is a nightmare, except you've got some kind of tool that will help you. And, you know, thankfully, you know, I came across this product called Laravel Filament, and it was Laravel Filament that sped up this entire process. And I'm just going to kind of walk us through, you know, how I went about it, you know, the design decisions that came into play. It's far from finished, but it's already an idea that is kind of evolving into a product. So
I think we need to say Laravel a few more times, and then Andrew is going to.
I was gonna say that's why I was smiling so much. I was like, Andrew, we have a team member that like Laravel was like, you know, his thing.
Yeah.
I will say, I know you said you're far from finished on this, but definitely feel free to. This is collaborative, so if you're like, oh, how would you expand on X, Y, or Z?
Exactly.
You know, you can ask chat, you know, things like that. So, all right, I'll let you hop into it.
All right. So, like every other product, one of the things you do first is that you start thinking about what are the relationships between the different entities within the application. Obviously, because that's and you know, when we were talking, you know, a while ago about, you know, AI and all that stuff, these are things that, you know, AI, it's good, like Bianca said, AI will give you the end product, but things like understanding systems and understanding entities and building your entity relationship diagrams and understanding the parties and the objects, AI is not going to generate those things unless you already know, you know, and this is like the process that I follow when I'm building applications. So the first set was, so the first thing actually was to sit down with my barber and ask him, okay, so what's this process? How do you go about it? And said, oh yeah, so, you know, when you call me, I look at this piece of paper where I write my, you know, appointments, and then I check through, and if there is no time in there, then I put it. I said, okay, fine, that's good. I said, but what happens if you misplace this paper? And he goes, well, that would be a bummer because, you know, because it means that 3 people can come at the same time, and I have no way of verifying whether they booked an appointment or not. And apart from those who book appointment, he also has working customers as well. So how will he be able to know exactly when to bring, be able to attend to these working customers if he doesn't even know who he has booked because he has lost this piece of paper? Was
there hesitancy as you're talking to somebody? Because I think this is one of the big problems is like, my guess is your barber's been using a piece of paper for a long time to handle this. Is someone like that willing to not use a piece of paper anymore? Are they willing to do something on a computer?
He's actually willing.
Okay.
You know, I think the only spot initially that I think he struggled with was the payment processing. You know, and he was like, oh yeah, because now, you know, people just send me the money or give me the money, the booking money and all that. But if you implement this, it means, you know, percentage of that has to go into, you know, paying for that. And I was like, well, if that happens, you can push the cost to your customers because they will know that, you know, you've got this service running and they've got to pay for it. And I think at that point he was like, okay, you know, why not give this a go? You know, and that's what kind of motivated me to start looking at this. So, but after my conversation with him, I was able to identify, you know, different entities that come into play here. So obviously there was going to be a user who's going to log
make
into
this page. Oh, I guess it's just the side. The text is big enough. We just can't see your whole thing on the side. Did you look at Laravel Spark for payments?
I haven't even got to the payments.
Haven't even gotten to payments yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've not got to the
Andrew, who's on our team, I don't know if you met him. He's a big Laravel evangelist, and he says that Spark is pretty good for payments. So
yeah. I know of Laravel Spark, but I've not got to that point. But once I get to that point, that would definitely be something that I would be looking into.
Nice.
Yeah. So, but is my screen visible now? The code?
Yeah, we're good. We can read it.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. So so now obviously there's going to be a user. And so if anybody who's not used Laravel, I'll just try to explain so that you understand, that when you have, don't forget about the table now, right? We're talking about the models that are involved in the application itself. So we've got a user model representing who is using the system, right? And that's what this class does. And this class basically is just saying there's a user who's got a name, an email, and a password, and that's it, And we just have some hidden things here because we don't want people to be able to see them when requests are made. And then that's it. So nothing has changed here because for now, there's really nothing much that the user from the business side of things is going to be doing other than logging in and managing his appointments, right? And then next we have next we have service. So for the Baba, they will have different services that they are that they offer. You could have cutting, maybe full barbing, shaving, or and all of not. And I was able to kind of get some of these things from him. So here I've got some fields here, which is name, description, the price, the duration, and that. Now, why did I add duration here? This will become more obvious much later. But at the moment, this guy just writes these things down. He doesn't have an idea of the duration. And the guy, he spends, because, depend on the kind of service he's offering, some of these appointments will take longer than the others. So if he's barbing for someone, I mean, okay, let's take for instance myself and Alex, right?
Yeah.
If he's gonna do a full barbing whatever for Alex, it's gonna take longer than myself.
My beard takes as long as my hair does. Like I go to a barber because he does my beard well. Like that is almost, I feel like I can find a lot of people who do the hair really well. Getting someone who can do the beard well too is a challenge. And I found a barber that I like because he does the beard, and I take longer, and I'm glad I do that. So I don't feel weird when someone's like waiting for me, taking too long.
Exactly. So so basically here we're just casting the price, the duration here. So there are different types. And then, so now, before I go into the relationships, I'll just go through the other models. So we've got the appointment. Now, appointments are linked to services. Now, the appointments model is a lot more involved because it sits at the core. It's the core of the whole business layer. So it's a little bit more involved. It's got the service ID because so when you book an appointment, that appointment is booked to a service, right? So that's why we have a reference to the service through the service ID here. Then we have the customer name, email, and so on like that. Now, I made a conscious decision, a conscious design decision here. I know people will say, why don't you just create the customers as users so that they can log in and book for appointments? But my aim here is for customers to be able to book appointments as quickly as possible without having to log into the system. And so that's why the appointments table is kind of like the catch-all, for everything about the customer. And that's why you have, the customer name, email, phone, and booking code and notes here. Now, each appointment would have different statuses. So when they book, it will be pending. When they make payments, then it will be confirmed. And then they can cancel. And then obviously completed is kind of like forward looking, if the Baba thinks, okay, I want to mark them as completed when I'm done, then he can do that. And then obviously there's no show, so that if the person doesn't show up, those appointments can be reallocated. This boot method here, for those who are not really kind of familiar, with Laravel models, basically saying that anytime this appointment is instantiated, um, it runs this boot method. And what I'm doing here basically is that generating a booking code for each appointment that's created. If the appointment doesn't have booking code, then I generate that booking code and then return it so that when the booking is being created, it has a booking code associated with it. And we will see the reason later why we're generating this. And that's actually the main logic with the appointment model. Everything else is just us establishing relationships here. So the appointment has belongs to this, it has a relationship to the service class. And then these are just kind of like getters, the appointment time, we just want, at some point, we want to be able to calculate how long this service is going to take. Mm-hmm. so that the person who is booking that service can know, actually, this is a 20-minute appointment. So which means that if I am setting my next availability, I should allow for this duration. So that's why this is being created here. And then, all the scope upcoming, you're going to see why all these ones are created in the dashboard. So I'm not going to kind of spend too much time on that. But there's a particular place where I want to kind of speak a bit, but not here.
We had one thing in chat. I'm curious, does your barbershop look like Andrew's barbershop at all? This one looks pretty wild. Little barbershop of horrors. His favorite barbershop in Vancouver Island.
It probably looks more busier than this, but with less items on the wall.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff there. They got a vibe going. Yeah. Anyways, barbershops are fun, and I feel like it's half and half. Like the barbershop I go to, everything's white, but like a lot of barbershops are just like full of character. Like it's very much the people who are there that are like making it a vibe.
Of course. I mean, if you want to hear the latest gossips, go to the barbershop. You will hear it. Someone was walking, who knows what's going on or what just went down yesterday, So it's always funny to hear that. Yeah. And then I have this model availability. So we've spoken about service, appointment. Now you need to be able to know your available times, and that's what this model is trying to do here. So we're basically looking at for each date, when's the start time, end time, and I came up with this max appointments. And the reasoning behind this max appointment is if you're able to take in say 6 1-hour barbing sessions in a day, then you should be able to set this max appointment to no more than 6, or else you're going to have a situation where you have more than the number of slots in a day that you can handle. And so once it hits this max appointments, then you know that you should start looking at the following day or another time, to be able to put in those availability, except if an appointment was canceled for some reason. So that's why this is there. And all these ones are just kind of like relationships and attributes. And that's it really. Is there any one I've not touched? Payment. Yeah, this is just typical payment. Right. So I was kind of simulating Stripe here.
Yeah.
So which is why Stripe session ID is being stored here. At the back of my mind, I was just thinking, okay, if I were to use Stripe, what are the fields that I would require? What are the statuses that I would have? And so on like that. But I guess if I'm using it to like Laravel Spark, a lot of these will be handled for me. So I'm keen to kind of have a look at that, at some point. So it's kind of like a simple model structure, nothing really, nothing complicated as far as the model structure is concerned, right? Now, Now that brings us to, what do we build first? Do we build the front end first, or do we build the back end first? So the front end is kind of like straightforward.
Yeah, and by front end you mean the part that a client
the
sees
public, yes, the public
Yeah.
facing. Yeah. So the public facing. So I think I probably would go through that first because it's less involved than the backend stuff. So because if at the end of the day we don't finish the backend stuff, at least the one that's public
Yeah.
facing, we can go through that. Right now, and like I said, the way I've designed this, I've designed it in such a way that the admin side is built using filament, but the public facing is built using what we normally call is it VLT, view inertia Laravel, and Tailwind, so that's the built model. So I don't know. Is anybody? Are you guys familiar with Inertia.js?
Not personally.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me just kind of talk a little bit about how I kind of came across that. Now, there used to be a time when we used to develop separate applications for front end and separate applications for back end. And then so the back end would be kind of like an API, and then you have the front end that will consume that API, which was okay, right? But it meant that if your application is more or less a monolithic application, you will be deploying two sets of applications. And I struggled with that a lot of times because I just felt I just only want to deploy one application. I don't want to deploy two applications. And so the answer to that was when Inertia.js was released. And basically what Inertia does is that it is an adapter that sits between Laravel and whichever front end. I think it supports Vue, React, and can't remember the third one, whether it's Svelte or so. And so basically it's kind of like an adapter where you are still building your backend and your front end, but they are like one application. So you can pass your data from your controllers, pass them to your Vue component or your React components as if it's just the same application. And so it's that adapter is in the middle that kind of takes that data, interprets it for the front end to understand, and that just works. So now if funny enough, my PHP Storm is acting weird. Let me see if I can force it to close but it's back. Actually, yeah. Maybe it was doing some indexing. So let me give a typical scenario of how that works. So if I go to my booking controller, okay, so let me.
You could still keep this side. It was just that it was small, but you could still keep it open.
I could still keep it. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just that it was a little small, but we'll figure it out.
All right. So just to kind of bring home what I was talking about, using Inertia.js with your Laravel application. So I've got this book. I've got this booking form here, right? And that booking form is what you see. So when you click on book an app, actually, let's actually go to the home page because that one's simpler, and then we can actually see what's going on. Okay, I think I just created that. Yeah. So this is my routes file, right? So so the routes file is kind of like your entry point into your application. Forgive me if I'm explaining these things, but because I'm assuming that not everyone is familiar with Laravel framework, so I might be kind of explaining some things that for some people they'll be rolling their eyes.
You only have one deep Laravel enthusiast. His name is Andrew. But aside from that, just
Yeah.
we're
Yeah,
all
cool.
we're all on a journey.
This is all looking really. I've like heard of Laravel. I don't think
Yep.
I've walked through an app with this much detail, and
Yeah.
it looks. I like how straightforward and organized it all looks. Like it's
Yeah.
pretty easy to read, and I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Mhm,
So basically, what this is saying is that, okay, if you hit this slash route, which is your home page, here, I was just being lazy, to be honest, because I could have created a controller and say, okay, call the controller, but I was like, nah. Yeah. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying, okay, return, and then I'm calling Inertia here. I'm telling Inertia, render this component for me. So because I've configured this to use Vue.js, so it means in essence that this is expecting me to have a home.view component somewhere, right? But by default, that home, that it would usually be in the resources. Oh, come on, what is going on with this thing? You can't expect
You're
this to
good.
happen. Yeah, okay.
It's okay. If you want to hear, I think I've told this on stream before, but the first time I tried to live code, I was going. The first time I tried to live code, my computer decided that it needed to update Xcode, which took 45 minutes.
Oh,
and
boy.
the second time I get coding, and I get started, and all of a sudden I'm just talking for a while and realizing no one's talking to me, and I'm like, what's going on? And my internet had been out for 20 minutes, and I was just going. I was so hands down. So this is mellow.
We also have strong opinions that everything else is just what you use. If Laravel is just too awesome for you, as I told you,
Andrew said this is what peak code looks like. So there you go. Yeah, everything else is just what you use. If Laravel is just too awesome for you, some things are just too awesome for us. What can you say?
Okay. So anyway, I'm back now.
Okay.
All right. So so now, like I was saying, when you hit the is this my website? You see what PHP Storm has done? It's opened another project by default. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
All right.
Andrew, I want to see your coding framework tier list.
Are we bringing back the shirts? We had our we're just gonna create a Laravel special edition, just for Andrew,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I'm going to just go to resources and then JS and then pages, and that's my home.view, right? So now let me increase this just to. Now, this is typically just a bunch of HTML. And if you look at what I have here, everything is kind of just hard-coded. The only aspect that's not hard-coded, I'm just going to scroll down and just show us. Yeah, so everything here is hard-coded because it's just the homepage. I'm not doing anything special here. But what I was just trying to kind of showcase here is just how seamlessly Laravel and Vue are talking to each other without you actually realizing that one is backend, the other one is front end, and you would see a typical example of where we're passing data, between the two of them. So if I go to say my booking controller now, and this is the booking form. So if I click on book an appointment, that brings me to this booking form here, right? Now, that booking form, what am I doing here? We're basically saying, this is my service model. So I'm saying, okay, return the service, my services that are active. That's why it's active is true. And then we're now saying that I'm just selecting specific fields that I need. I need the ID, the name, the description, price, and duration. And then it gets it, right? And then next thing I'm doing now is I want to be able to, because for this person to be able to book, we need to know what today's date is, what date they want to book for, and then the time that is available for that booking. All right. So now, if I click on this, nothing's going to happen. If I click on that, nothing's going to happen. Reason being, we don't have data, right? We're going to solve that problem by me going to. So I think I jumped the gun somewhere, but Laravel gives us something that we could use to seed our data, and
Nice.
that is what's called seeders, right?
Oh, that's
so
cool.
I've got a bunch of seeders that I've created here. I'll just talk us quickly through some of them. So this is my service seeder, right? So in my service seeder, I've kind of created an array of different seeders. I've got haircuts, name, description, price, duration, and so on like that, beard trim, hair coloring, and so on like that. And then I've got appointments, and appointments is a bit more involved because I want to simulate exactly how you book an appointment. Well, the data has to reflect the restrictions and the conditions that are required for this application. So it's a lot more involved. I can't go through everything.
You don't need we don't.
Yes. So
There's
but
a lot
basically
there.
I'll just show us what's going on here. So I'm basically just getting all the slots that are available, and then I'm checking if it's today. I don't want anything for today. I want appointments for after today, and I am kind of doing some random generation here, 50% chance to create an appointment for this slot. So I'm kind of simulating, ensuring that we have a number of slots on a particular day without exceeding the number of slots for those days. So that's what this does, basically. And then I've got the availability seeder here, where I am just kind of creating availability for those days. And so if I take us to this database seeder, which is kind of like the umbrella for all of them, it calls each of the seeders one after the other. It has to call the service seeder first because we need to have services first, right? Because without the service, you can't start creating availability, right? And then it's after you have availability, you can create appointments. And so it has to be in this order, right? Now, let's see how that works. Now, if I go to my command line, I just open another terminal here.
Can you make that one a little bigger too?
Yes, I am going to increase that. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Nice.
All right, so I'm going to go to Clipperly. Let me move it to
While you do this, Andrew mentioned Perl in the comments. I don't know if anyone's used Perl. I haven't coded with it.
Perl was my first programming language, and it was so cryptic it almost derailed my development ambitions.
When I was in grad school, I knew a guy who was so good at Perl that instead of writing his applications for grad school, he would write Perl code to write the applications in whatever language they were asked him to make it in. And it would be like, the end result would be like 50, 100 lines of code, and it would be 4 lines of Perl that he would write to write it. It was like it was wild what this person could do with Perl.
Wow. So anyway, so I'm just going to do PHP artisan, and then I'm going to just say db seed, and that's all I need to do really. And then I run that. Now I've got some errors, and I think the reason I'm having these errors is because, SQLite can be quite funny, especially when it comes to foreign keys. But let me see if it's at least inserted some things for us. It's actually giving us some things that we can work with, so that's fine. So if I refresh this now, there you go. You know,
Nice.
we didn't have all these before,
Right.
but now we have all that. So now, yeah. So if I go back to my book appointment controller, this is that. Now, so this is the form, right? And so in that form, we are kind of like checking, are there any slots for you know, the day that this person is going to pick here? Because that will determine. So if I click on here now, nothing's going to happen. And the reason why nothing's going to happen is because this is dependent on the service that is selected, right? But if I click on haircut now, for instance, then dates will drop down.
Nice.
Right? So that's the dependency between the two of them, right? So if we say we select Wednesday, then it shows the available times for that particular day. So that's what all this is doing here. So basically saying, do we have slots on this particular day, right? And then if it has slots, then it kind of generates all the you know, the time for that particular slot. Now, remember what I told you about that's how inertia sits between Laravel and Vue.js. That's exactly what's happening here. So we are returning inertia render here. So we're basically telling inertia, render this component for us. This component form is booking form.view that sits in the booking folder, right? And then pass in these services as well as these dates, right? So if we go to our resources, JS, and then I go to my pages, and then I go to booking, this is our booking form, right? And then, so let me just close this so that we just see. So you can see that's book an appointment, which is what you have here. I'll just go straight to where, you know, we're actually retrieving that that data. So you see, these are the props. So those are the properties that are being passed from Laravel to Vue.js. And so the services and the dates are being sent as arrays. And so we're able to take these data and utilize them within the application. So if you if you go back up, yeah, so you see here is loading the available times, and then we are looping through each slot and then displaying the slot time, this you know, and looking at the selected slot and checking whether those slots are available. So that's why we have this, right?
Yeah.
And then the person can kind of select the time that they want. Now you can see that this third part only just appeared now. So these are kind of like checks to make sure that until you select the service, until you select the time, you can do any booking, right? So you could, you know, put in your name and say, you know, I would just say Alex.
You better give me a beard trim too.
And Bianca.
It's a great name.
Then,
great name.
Yeah, I'll just say ab@email.com. And then, you know, this can be any number, because I've not, actually, I think at this point, have I, yeah, it should be fine. All right, so, and then, yeah, and then all we just do is we book that. And then immediately, so I hope you understand what I meant by, I wanted the time, the booking duration, number one, to be quick. I wanted it to be simple. And, you know, I didn't want any hoops, so to speak, for users. It should be quick. It should be, in fact, it should be quicker than them calling up the barber to say, you know, can I get a time to barb my hair? You know, it's going to probably take them about 5 minutes for him to say, hold on, let me check. And then he has to,
while he's cutting somebody else's hair.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I like that aspect too, which is like, is this adding value, right? I think sometimes it's like, let's just slap technology on this, and there's no fundamental value beyond just like, you know, this is like tech enabled, right? And I like this idea of like, how are we solving a process problem? And then also, how are we creating value for whoever is a stakeholder?
Exactly.
Ooh, okay. Stephen has
Yeah.
a great question. Do you accept walk-ins? You know,
Mm.
how would a walk-in
Yeah.
factor into this
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
situation?
Yeah. So I think so. This is a very, very important question, because for the walk-in, maybe when we get to the back end, that will become more obvious, right? Because when a walk-in comes in, the barber can take his iPad or his laptop if he has any, and then he can check, if he's got appointment for that period. And if he doesn't have any appointment for that period, he can just literally just give the customer the iPad and say, okay, booking at so time, and then he books in, and that will solve that problem. And if he doesn't have, he could tell him, okay, can you book for later in the day, and that would address the walk-ins. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing from you is just like, by knowing the availability, by having kind of a clear view about like, this is what I have available, this is what I don't, it allows you to just kind of like not double book, or kind of know what buffer you have.
Exactly.
Like nowadays though, with these things, so like there's some app that's out there that I use to book my barber as well. I would never even think to just walk in. Like, because these apps are there and it's so quick.
Yes.
I would never think. I would just go and like see when the next appointment is. And I mean, maybe there's something that you lose by not being able to go walk in, but I think it's got to be a better experience for everybody. You're not waiting around.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's what I think as well, because if you walk in and the guy tells you, well, I'm sorry, I'm booked for the next 3 hours. Could you just take this, this iPad and book for the next available slot?
Yeah.
You're indirectly, kind of putting it in their minds that, okay, next time you're going to come, make sure you check to book before you come in, because this is what we use now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No,
I see that.
Cool. All right. So once this is done, I don't know, I've got this other cool tool as well, called Laravel Herd, which is what we're just on
a Laravel
ecosystem.
I love this. This is great. Let's go for it.
Yeah. So basically, if everything works as I expect it to, we should have some emails. Yeah.
Ooh.
And that actually shows you a new appointment.
Nice.
Now, 2 emails will be sent, right? The first one that's sent here is sent to the admin, right? Alerting him to the fact that he's got an appointment. And that's the shop owner. So now he knows he has an appointment, right? Now the status here is pending. And the reason why it's pending is because, there are 2 stages to it. Funny enough, when I showcased this to the barber, we've kind of changed that. So the idea was that if you look at this email, so this is the one that will be sent to the actual person who booked the appointment. So you can see, thank you for booking. To confirm your appointment, please complete your payment by clicking the link below, right? So they, click that. And if this is working, it should bring them here, right? And so this is kind of like the simulated payment, page, where they can actually, let's see if I can.
I think how you put it on the bottom. This is a simulated page. No payments will actually be.
No, this is not a real credit card. Don't try this at home, kids.
Don't try this at home, please.
No, and I think that actually getting the credit card information is really important up front too, because if people start no-showing, you get to start charging them, and you're not kind of in trouble. I think one of the fears with one of these, if you didn't do that, would be a bunch of people just book and not show up. It's not like there's something personal about talking to somebody first.
Yeah. So you could see now, payment successful, your appointment has been confirmed, and then, it shows them the service, the duration, and then status is now confirmed, and, if you check the email, that tells the person your payment has been confirmed, and then, the barber knows, okay, I need to expect this person because he's paid, right? So that's basically the kind of like how the front end looks like. Just gonna show us quickly if I've still got.
Yeah, you got time. Do you integrate this with Twilio? Like, are they getting emails from SendGrid? Or are they getting Twilio SMS?
So I've implemented this with both Twilio and SendGrid.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about filament, because that's kind of one aspect of mine that is really, I love it. And, so filament allows you to kind of rapidly build up your backend. And all you just need to do is just create what is called resource class, and that's it. Once you create those resource classes, it just builds your dashboard for you, and then you can kind of now like, modify it as you want to. So I
love frameworks that build stuff for you. I got started in web dev and Ruby on Rails. It was just like add more stuff on.
Ruby does that. Yeah. So at the moment, I don't have. So I've kind of jumped where you install filament and all that, but you can read all that in the documentation. Yeah. But the point where I am now is I don't have an admin user yet. So I can create that simply by just doing PHP artisan filament, if I can remember. I'm really bad when it comes to, okay, if I can't remember, I could just do that and then it should tell me. Yeah. Otherwise, okay.
I think the whole point of the stream was to recruit people to use Laravel.
Laravel.
I think it's like
I know it's sponsored, not sponsored.
Yeah, I was actually right. Yeah, so it's me. Yeah.
I was cracking. I was like, who thought we just thought we were building a barber app. Little did we know we were exploring the Laravel ecosystem.
Okay, so basically, this is so this is just saying, create me a filament user, right? So I press enter, and then it asks me for name, and I say admin at clipply.com. Oh, okay, sorry, that's name. This is name, so I'll just say clipply admin, and then email address will be admin at clipply.com. Then my password. And that's it. So it's created that, and then I can use this to log in. See how I didn't even have to implement all this? So if I just go and then let me refresh just for session purposes.
Oh, and nice.
Here we go.
I created all this for you.
Yeah,
oh, wow.
And here we go. Yeah. So really didn't have to. So now, when you look at this, right? So you've got this appointment, you've got this slots. All you need to do, basically, and you've got service appointment and slots, and all that requires is for you to just this. I didn't even create by hand. If you want to create, a resource, you can actually just do something like, you just do PHP, I think artisan, make resource. Let's say, for instance, let me say payment, because I don't have a payment resource, right? And it's created that. Now, if you look here, it should have created that payment resource. I think PHP is just wasting time getting that. Yeah. Yeah, because it says here. Oh no. Okay.
Oh, there was a.
Sorry. It was a wrong. Oh, that was a wrong resource I created. Yeah, it actually should be PHP assistant filament resource. I think make filament resource. Yeah. Make filament resource. Then payment. Okay. Yeah, that was just me. Okay, so you could see now it's created that payment resource. Okay, now check this out. All I just need to do is if I go to let me go to my payments module and see what fields we have there. So we've got amount, status. Yeah, so let me just add in the column. So you see it's created different sections. So we've got table, and then we've got form, right? So under the table, I just need to do what did I say? Amount, status. Okay, let's just say appointment ID, amount, and status. So let's do appointment ID. Yeah, it's actually giving me and then amount. Thank you, ChatGPT.
There you go. I was going to ask, how much did you use AI to help code this versus how much you just do it by hand?
I think when it comes to kind of generating this resource, for instance, AI is very good at doing that because, to be honest, it's the same way. You don't really need
it's very consistent.
You don't need to change. However, it gets some things wrong, right? In this case, just here and now on live stream, it's got this wrong because this class is deprecated. It doesn't exist anymore. So all I needed to do in this case is, if I didn't know, right, I'm just going to leave it like that. But because I know that this is is deprecated, and I have to now use a text column instead. So I use a text column. But then if I still want it to be a badge, then all I just need to do is just attach, if my memory serves me, badge. Yeah, then I can just create badge there, right? And and that's it. But,
cool.
but that's because I know. If I didn't know, then it's just gonna be that. But for some other aspects of it, I had to kind of leverage my understanding of Laravel. So let's go back to here and see what happens. You see the payments that we just created now?
Yeah, this is super slick.
Yeah. Now the reason why this is happening is because I accepted things that I shouldn't have accepted. So
the struggles of
So I'm gonna remove all that for now. Actually, I don't actually need a badge, to be honest. Okay. Yeah. So that's it. So you don't really. I've not written any code to say, okay, and I'm not writing any HTML to say, add this, create this page and all that. It just does that out of the box. And all I need to do is just specify, the columns I want, the fields I want, and all that. So if you look here, you've got the services already created there. I can edit. I can do anything. Appointments are here. Now, Now, this is where you see. This was that's the one we just booked now.
Yeah.
So the guy just needs to log in here and say, "Oh, okay, I've got an appointment. Okay, that's cool." And answering the person who talked about walk-ins. This is what will solve the problem with walk-ins. So let's say, for instance, the barber has time and he wants to do, or maybe somebody even calls him up and says, I want to book an appointment, because this is going to happen. They may say, I want to book an appointment. I don't have access to a computer right now. Could you sort me out, right? Now he can say, okay, I will book an appointment for you. You've got to transfer the funds to my bank account, and I will go ahead. When you've paid, let me know, and then I'll book it. So the guy pays, he gets the confirmation. All he has to do is just come to new appointment here, and then he can just create the appointment for that customer.
Cool.
And then once he creates that appointment, he can confirm it, and then that's done with that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you show us, if you have it ready? And I don't want to do it if it's going to expose any credentials, but like where does Twilio fit in? Like where do you send the text message? Like what's the plan there?
Yes. So I think, let me see. I created a service. Yeah, that's my Twilio service here.
Nice.
So this is my Twilio service. So basically, I'm just creating a client, passing in my,
This
my
is from our
Twilio
PHP
and
SDK, I'm
token.
guessing.
Well, it's a standard, a kind of standard pattern, for that. But it's typically the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of instantiated the client and get my number, and the rest is just put everything in a try catch, because anytime you're making a request to an external platform, you want to be able to catch any exception. It could be that the person supplied the wrong phone number, or there's some other things that may be happening. And then, so that's why I'm wrapping this in a try catch. So, and this is one of the beauty of the simplicity of using Twilio, messaging, is the fact that all that is doing the sending is just this block of code.
Yeah.
And that's it, and you're done. I mean, I could pretty much take this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines and put them in here and get rid of all these other lines, and it works.
Yeah.
Right now, this is just me being, I'm naturally a defensive programmer.
As you
So
should be.
So I don't want to kind of rely on what the user has put in.
For this, you could both have, you could either have a set number, or you could probably have the from number be a variable, so every bar could have their own number if you wanted.
Yes.
And then you could also do things like, if the barber is running late, they could send a message. Like it'd be pretty easy to implement, because everything's just a variable. You're just calling your Twilio service function with whatever info you need to make it happen.
Exactly.
Nice.
And my service here, I kind of created this service to make it testable.
Yeah.
So which is why I extract a lot of things separately. So you've got like the send SMS that has a dependency on this format phone number. So because I want to be sure that this phone number is in a particular format, so I'm kind of going through a whole lot of remove non-numeric characters, and then checking if the number that was entered starts with plus, and going through that whole process of making sure that it fits in, and then return that. Now I could test this separately.
Do you know how else you could do that? Have you used the lookup API?
I know of the lookup API, and I know it's pretty handy to do this kind of thing as well. Yeah. So
we got options,
Exactly.
It's almost like it worked for Twilio.
there are options. So this is kind of like how the backend really is, and I'm conscious of time, and I just want to show one last thing, which is this generation, generating quarterly slots. So the idea here is that, I'm allowing for, there may be times when the barber decides I'm going on holiday, or I will not be available, and so on. So the idea is to generate slots within a certain time frame, and not just leave it open-ended, right?
Yeah.
So now I've got this. So you could either create a new slot here and say, okay, I don't work on Sundays, but because someone wants to come back their hair on Sunday, I'm just going to create an extra slot for that day. So they could do a one-off slot in here, create another, right? Another thing they could do also is to now say, okay, I have an idea that I'm going to be around for the next quarter, and then they can click on generate quarterly, right? So they can pick, say, from, start date could be, say, from May 1st, and say, to, say, August 31st. And then they have the option to be able to say days to generate. So he could say, actually, during this quarter, I'm not going to work on Sunday and I'm not going to work on Saturday. So he can check that off. So and then he can select his start time and select his end time, and then he can select max appointment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he could say, actually, I've employed 3 more barbers. So because I can take 3 at a time, then he can select 3 at a time. And, and that's it. So once he does that and he generates that availability, that will generate, and then it will come into this slot here. And then you see all these slots that you have capacity. How many capacity do we have for this particular day? To be able to fill in all the relevant slots for that. For that period.
It also helps you over time. So before we kind of wind it down, this was awesome. So thank you so much. Also, I'm gonna pull up the what is it? We were giving Laravel so much love. Just so we where did it go?
Sorry, my bad.
Just so you know, Laravel, just live, just so we can see. I don't, wherever it is on the screen. So this was awesome. Let me get it back to boom.
I got you.
Okay, great. What was that? Oh my gosh, my brain blank. Oh no, I know what I remembered. So one thing I liked about that last part that you added in, which is even this aspect of like having the data, so making sure like if every time you're fully booked, right? Like your 4 slots are never unbooked. I think after a while you're like, okay, maybe I might need to hire some folks, right? Like maybe I might need to. So I think even getting the data. The other thing I did like about, kind of seeing more about Laravel is like half the battle is less of the tech. It's less of the tech, but it's like, how are you approaching solving this solution? And I do kind of like that Laravel allows you to quickly kind of really create a solution and allows you to kind of tweak out, okay, what needs to be done. So then I feel like you can start to like layer in some other stuff, right? Around like whether it's like tools like Twilio of like, how can you make the experience better, in different ways. So I do kind of like just the introduction of this tool of like, oh, I have this idea in my brain. How do I get it out? And I think that we can kind of get stuck on that, like, how do I get it out of my brain?
I agree completely.
And the whole thing was you spent most of the time talking about what the users and the barbers needed. And then just how do you translate that to code? Like the Twilio stuff was 4 lines, which I love.
Exactly.
Like I love, this was just a great example of you taking a real world problem and deciding to build. What is it that inspires you to keep building these things?
I guess I've always seen myself as funny enough, I've never really seen myself as a coder or a developer. I've always seen myself as a solutions provider. I guess each time when I walk into a service center or anywhere where service is being, offered, first thing that occurs to me is, are there any problems here? Do they have queuing problems? Do they have service delivery problems? Do they have, some of the problems I may not be able to solve. Some others in my head, I'm like, oh, if I've got the opportunity, I will be able to do this, this, and this. And I think that's what actually inspires me, to be able to, write code that solves problems.
I kind of even just like diving deeper into that. So I'm thinking about, so we have an upcoming event, which is in the title is like unlocking the VIP experience, right? Like when you think about a great experience, right? Like what does it mean to give somebody, a customer, like a good VIP experience? What do you feel like are some important components of that?
I think one of the components of that is, when you give people the ability to be part of the problem solving, you actually make them feel important. And I think this is where a lot of us in the software development, this is where we usually get it wrong, right? Because we sometimes just kind of speak to people as if they don't know anything, and we are solving their problems, rather than actually making them part of that solution and giving them that opportunity to be able to be heard. So that when that problem is solved, they're like, oh, wow, yeah, I was part of that. I gave them this idea and I gave them that idea. And I think that's important.
I really like that because, if we think about things like personalization, there's the aspect of like the data, but essentially with personalization is like, do you hear me? Hi, I like to stay on the top floor. Can you make sure that I don't know why I'm yelling? Because that's my personalization point. But
I feel like as a VIP, you need to yell to get your point across.
I need to, but that's the thing. I think
a real VIP can just talk softly.
See, I think we're so used to feeling like, do you hear me? Like, are you actually listening? And I love this idea of like, no, being a part of the process is like, how are you making space so that you can listen to your customer more, right? Yeah. So like, where are you making it conversational? Where are you kind of pulling out behaviors, habits, or things that you've seen them do in the past? And I think like we can sometimes make personalization so broad, or even kind of this like insights you have about your customer, but essentially all those things are saying is like, I hear you, and you don't have to yell for to feel like a VIP, but like you can talk softly. I'll hear you. I'll incorporate it. So I love that. Steve, I like so much. I took so much notes because I love that you're kind of reminding us of just like the foundations of building. And I think it's so easy with so much great new tech to kind of forget the essence of building great products. Talk to your users. Are you improving things, right? Like, are you making stuff better, right? And I appreciate just kind of your thoughtfulness and the passion around like technology is an avenue for me to solve problems. You know what I mean? So
exactly.
That was awesome. So Steve, it was such a delight. I hope you enjoyed hanging out with us.
I did.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. We'll see if we can get you and Andrew connected because Laravel, all the things. But thank you so much. I always feel super grateful when we have our champions on because it's just such a reminder of just other folks playing around with Twilio and building great things. And then also just like awesome people in our ecosystem. So thank you for being a great part of our Twilio ecosystem. Alex, any closing thoughts?
No, I love talking to people on the ground building, and you just exude builder energy with how you think through things. And in a way that's really grounded to like the reason we build, which is to solve a problem. And I just really appreciate that. So thank you so much for being here and joining us and being a champion and just being a part of our Twilio ecosystem.
So, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And I must say that I really enjoyed going to Signal, the last Signal that that you had. It was my first time, and it was amazing. It was amazing. Yeah.
See, that was not even sponsored.
You didn't say it. But if anyone needs tickets for the next Signal in San Francisco, there you go. We got tickets for you.
But
I've got my branded Twilio shoes though. I haven't worn them.
Oh, you got to see. We don't have Twilio shoes. You got the Twilio shoes. That's cool.
Wow,
that's cool.
You never know what you'll get at the Signal Adventures. But I love though that your first Signal was such a positive experience. You know what I mean? So I think like I think especially as we're back into the scene, folks can be like, what should I expect or like what? But I love have that openness. You never know what you'll get, So that was awesome. But if you're interested in Signal, definitely have the link there. But yes, thanks for hanging out with us, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. What else we got? I got one important thing. Everyone, I need you to go and watch the latest episode of Twilio Update.
Boom.
Posted this morning. The link's right there. We're talking about MCP, which is the thing that everyone seems to be talking about nowadays. Model Context Protocol, the hot new thing in AI that everyone's talking about.
Ooh, sounds
MCP,
good.
yeah, you know me. There we go. Exactly. I think I have the video, the shot of me like this too. I don't know if that's the one we used, but I think it's we that was one of the debates I think that we were debating on if we were going to use that one or not. Because
Just
yeah,
like
there's
that.
some shots of me.
I
going
think
like
we
this
just end like this. So thank you for joining.
Yeah, but
AB.
Signal, and then join the Discord if you want to chat with us more.
Yes.
So if you want to chat with us more, you can join the Discord. Here we go. Bianca and I, as she mentioned, we have our event coming up is that 2 weeks from now?
Yes, on the 30th. Yes,
Okay.
30.
2 weeks from now, we've got an awesome event with some really cool presenters joining us.
You're gonna learn a lot. You're gonna learn a lot. It's great. So this is awesome. So, and thank you for joining A/B testing. We're out.
Oh wait, I gotta push buttons. Hold on. Okay, ready? Wait, do it again.
And